Hey everyone, welcome to your online makeup class. Today we're going to be discussing the four parts of a presentation. Now, some of this is review and some of it is new, right? No matter what, it's going to be great practice for your group projects that are coming up soon. Before we begin, let's go over some tips and expectations for this online format. First, do not race through the video, okay? I want you to take your time, make sure you're understanding the information provided. Also, there will be some writing exercises, so you will need a pen and paper, all right? Make sure you hold on to everything that you write down. I will be checking them, so bring those with you to class on the 3rd, okay? Also, I want you to practice speaking, right, while we're doing this. So I'm going to give you breaks in between each practice exercise, and you're going to have that opportunity to practice what you wrote, right? Now, you can do this in front of a mirror, or if you have family and friends close by, practice with them. But the main idea is I want you to be focusing on your posture, the gestures you're using, all right, making sure you're doing good eye contact, all of the strategies that we practice throughout the semester. Make sure to include it during this lesson, all right? And finally, I just want to note that if I am speaking too fast or the content is going by too quickly, don't be scared to pause the video or rewind even, right? You have this video for a while, so it's up to you how quickly you go through it, but take your time, as I stated right away. This is not a race. Just take your time, make sure you get the most out of this. Okay, so with all of that in mind, let's get started. So, four parts of a presentation. Today we're going to begin with the hook, which is actually new information for you guys. This is very important though. This is how you start strong. This is how you gain the interest of your audience. I'm going to get into more detail about it, but we'll be putting some heavy focus upon this part. Next, we're going to get into the introduction, which we have already gone over quite a bit. It'll be a quick review, and then we'll go on to the body, which we have also covered in class. So we will review that as well just because of the importance, but maybe not spend as much time as we do on the hook. And this final one, the conclusion, which is also important. Now, we've done a little bit with the conclusion, but not to the point where it's really going to keep the audience thinking after the presentation is over. So we're going to talk about a couple strategies to use for that. The hook. Okay. Well, let's think of the hook when it comes to fishing, right? So whenever you go fishing and you're putting on your bait, you put the bait onto a hook, right? And then you cast out into the water, hoping to catch a fish. Now, the only way to catch the fish is with the hook. The hook gets that fish, right? So you can bring them in. So we're going to use this as well when it comes to a presentation. But rather than catching fish, our whole goal is to catch attention, right? So why do we need it? Here we go. Let's start with the first one. Grabs the audience's attention. Like I said, you catch your audience. You catch their attention so they're focusing upon you. Another great thing why we need this is that it gets the audience on your side. So this means the audience are going to like you better, right? If you start with a strong, entertaining hook, they're going to like you. If they like you, they're going to focus more, right? Now, thinking about it on the opposite end, let's say you don't have a hook or you don't interest the audience at the beginning, right? They might be looking around or focusing on something different, looking out the window or writing in their notebook, playing on their phone. All these are very distracting for the presenter. And when it's distracting for you, you might make a mistake or it makes you uncomfortable. And the more uncomfortable you get, the worse the presentation's going to be, right? So if you can get the audience to pay attention and focus and be on your side, you are definitely going to be more comfortable up there and you're going to produce a better speech. Also, why we need this? It is a great starting point, right? And when you have a strong starting point, it makes the rest of the presentation easier, right? So start strong, continue strong, and you'll also be able to end strong. However, if you don't start strong, you are going to have trouble getting back to a point where the presentation is great. You know what I mean? So that's why we have the hook. Now, what is a hook? Well, there's many different ways to do this. A few examples here are using a short story. It doesn't have to be true, and it doesn't even have to be about you. It can be about somebody else. But anyway, it's just some sort of story that's going to interest the audience while correlating with the topic at hand. Right? So we'll get into detail about that later. Another type of hook that could be used as interesting details or facts about the specific topic you're presenting on. Keyword, interesting. Okay. Don't start with boring random details. You have to make sure that they're interesting details that are going to grab the audience's attention. Okay. You can also use quotes or proverbs, right? This is pretty popular. I like this if you can find a very appropriate quote that matches with your topic. It gets the audience thinking right away and it helps them to focus more upon your presentation. You can also ask provocative questions, right? This is great for interaction in the beginning. So when you're interacting with the audience, they are forced to focus on you. So don't be scared to ask some sort of provocative questions to the audience, right? Get them involved in the presentation at the beginning. That way they will continue to focus and watch throughout the whole entire presentation. All right, so here's some examples of how to use a hook. Right? Let's imagine that we are giving a presentation on the sun. Right, now, while there's a few different ways to do this, I will start with telling a short story. Okay, so I'll just read it off and then we'll explain why it works after. I was once asked about what I believe to be the most important thing for people. While ideas like family, happiness, money, and so on ran through my mind, one random thought also swept through. It was about the sun. I realized that without the sun, we wouldn't have any of those wonderful things I initially thought of. Okay, so basically, this is not a true story, but it is a story that is putting great importance on the sun, right? And this is one technique you can use for a short story. The whole idea of putting great importance on your topic is going to relay to the audience that they need to listen because it is important, right? So the greater the importance, the greater focus you'll get from everybody. Anyway, that's just one way to use a hook. We have another where you could just use details. Okay, so again, I'll read it. 1,392,000 kilometers. That's the ridiculously large diameter of the sun. Here's another number, 109. That's the number of Earths it would take to span across the entire surface of the sun. Okay, so obviously these are just details and facts about the sun, but they're immense numbers, right? They're large facts, large details that have grandeur behind them. Because of this, you're going to catch the attention of the audience. Anything huge and enormous like this, when it comes to the facts and details, are a good way to begin to gain focus from everybody. All right, the last example I want to go over is a quote and how to use it. So, it has been said that no matter how tall the mountain, It cannot block out the sun. Now, while this can take on many different meanings, it shows the great importance the sun has to us. Okay, so again, this is kind of similar to what I did with the short story, right? I used a quote that matched with my topic, the sun, right? And I showed the importance of it through that quote, right? Now again, it's going to do the same thing as a short story. If I show importance at the beginning, my audience is going to be more willing to listen to the entire presentation. All right, so those are just a few examples, but you can use any of the hooks that we talked about in the previous slide. All would work well as long as you do them correctly. Hence, why we're going to practice this. Okay, so let's get this practice going on. Let's choose the topic of full circle rainbows. Yes, very, very beautiful. Basically, I just want you to create two different hooks for this topic. You can either use a short story, or interesting details and facts, quotes of proverbs, or some provocative questioning. I don't care which ones you do, but make sure you do two of them. All right. So I'm going to give you guys about 5 to 10 minutes. Well, I'll give you 5 minutes before the next slide goes back on. So write it down and then practice saying your hooks either to a mirror or family and friends if you got them. All right. So remember, when you're doing this, try to use your gestures, good eye contact, all of that wonderful stuff. All right. So after about 5 minutes, I'll move on to the next slide. Good luck. Okay, hopefully you guys practiced your hook quite a bit. If you need more time, go ahead, pause the video, and continue to practice. However, if you're ready to move on, let's just go. So next we're going to be talking about the introduction, which we have done plenty of times in class, right? So we have a lot of understanding of this already. So we will just try to go through it quickly. So here we go. Why do we need the introduction? Well, obviously it lets the audience know what you're going to be presenting, but moreover, it tells the audience why this presentation is important to them, right? Why you're giving this information to them. So we don't speak just to hear our own words. When we're presenting something, we're doing it to educate, or we're doing it to give specific information to a group or audience who can learn something from that information, who they can gain knowledge from it. So you need to tell them why it is important. You got to justify that right at the beginning. Right? And also, the introduction is going to give the audience the layout of the presentation. This helps them with knowing what to expect from the presentation. So if they have to take notes, then this is going to be a really easy way to help them set up an outline and follow along with your presentation. So again, what's in the introduction? You guys know this. First off, introduce yourself and your major, right? You're always going to greet the audience. Next, you're going to give some general information about the topic at hand. Nothing too specific, but you do need to just touch upon what you're speaking about in a very general idea. After that, then you're going to get a little bit more specific. This is where you list your main ideas, your main topics of your presentation. Usually we're going to use 3. You can have more, which is awesome. I would not recommend having less than 3. Okay? It just won't make for a good enough presentation. So going for 3 of those. Once you list those main ideas, which will be in the same order that you present later in the body, you're going to go on to give your opinion on the topic itself, right? So all of my presentations are always having some sort of opinion base, and you should give this right at the end before you go into the presentation, and then later in the conclusion you can reiterate your opinion that you have. Okay, so greeting, general information, main ideas, followed by the opinion. Now, the opinion, I know we didn't cover too much in class, so I'm going to try to give you a few good examples of that. That way you're better prepared and know how to use it for your group projects later. So let's check it out. The example that I'm going to introduce to you guys today is going up the bull shark. So let's just assume that you have to do some speech on the bull shark. And we needed to introduce it, right? So I'm going to start off by introducing myself. Say, hello everyone. Hey everyone. I'm Balin Ferguson and currently lecturing at Dongguk University. So remember, keep this basic, keep it simple, just your name and your major, or if there's some other information about you that connects to the topic, great. Okay, but this should be a very short, basic introduction of yourself. Now, once you go on from that, you're going to give general information, right? So the bull shark, obviously being a shark, sharks would be a good general information about it, right? So that's how I would start it. So, for example, as you know, there are hundreds of different species of shark all over the world. While most are confined to the ocean, some have the ability to navigate into fresh water as well. One type of shark that can do this is the bull shark, which will be our focus today. Okay, right, so I gave general information about sharks and a little bit of general information about the bull shark itself on how it can actually navigate from saltwater to freshwater. But anyway, it's just brief general information, brief look into what our topic's going to be, right? Now, once we finish giving this, we're going to give our main points. And obviously, main points are going to differ from group to group. It's just whatever you find to be important. The main points that I chose are as follows. I will begin by talking about where bull sharks can be found. After that, I'll explain specific characteristics that allow them to be fantastic hunters. Finally, I'm going to compare them with some other widely known sharks. Okay, so I went over my three main points. So obviously we're going to be talking about the location of the sharks first, right? And then we're going to be talking about their characteristics for hunting. And then last, they're going to be compared to other popular sharks, right? It's right there in the writing. It's pretty easy how you set this up. So keep it in the order as far as what you're going to present later in the body. And as you're doing this, it's just really easy to give order of operation words to define first, second, and third. So notice I said after that. You could say next, and then, right? Any of those order of operation words that we practice in class are perfect to use here to separate the main ideas that you'll be speaking about. Okay, finally, let's go on to the opinion, the one that might be a little more confusing compared to the other ones. So, for example, my opinion here is, after this presentation, you will surely see why I believe bull sharks to be one of the most supreme creatures in the sea. Okay, so this is an opinion, right? I'm trying to say that I believe bull sharks to be one of the most fantastic in the sea compared to all creatures, but basically I'm putting this shark above a majority of the other sharks, right? So this matches with all the information that I gave before, right? So they're fantastic hunters, right? They have the ability to navigate from freshwater to saltwater. All the information that I provided in my presentation is going to prove my opinion of the bull shark being a magnificent creature. Okay, so that's what you should kind of end with your introduction. You're going to give some sort of opinion that can be proven with all the information that you were giving throughout your presentation. Okay, and so it's a little difficult, but I think with some practice, you guys will feel better and better about it, which we're going to do now. Here's a fairly easy practice exercise for the introduction. We will use the topic of the most delicious foods from around the world. We all love food, right? So this should be fairly easy for you to set up an introduction for. So yeah, that's all I want you to do. Create an introduction, right? Make sure to include the greeting where you introduce yourself, general information about delicious foods, a list of main ideas, right? What are the three main ideas you're going to talk about? And then your opinion, right? So same style as previously. I want you to take about 5 to 10 minutes to write down this introduction and then practice saying it. Okay, I'll see you guys again soon. Good luck. Okay, I am back. Time to get into the body. But again, if you didn't have enough time to practice, go ahead and pause the video and practice until you feel comfortable using the introduction. Anyway, with the body, why do we need it? Well, without a body, there really is just no information that you can give to the audience. This is your presentation. The body is the majority, the bulk of the information that you're talking about. So you have to have it. So it provides the relevant, informative, and interesting knowledge to the audience. Take note, interesting, okay? I definitely want your presentations to be educational, but you have to realize who you are presenting to, right? Know your audience, meaning you have to make it somewhat interesting for them to the point where they will focus and pay attention to what you're speaking about. If it's boring, you're going to lose your audience, right? They're going to stare out the window. They're going to play with their phones just like they had done when you had a really bad hook. So same idea. Make sure your information is somewhat entertaining because that's the best way to keep an audience's focus, right? So once you have that, let's move into what is the actual body and what makes up of it. And it's basically just the main ideas, right? So the main ideas that we listed in our introduction, right? We're just going to get into more depth with them. So you can use details, you can use reasons, you can use examples, right? So the reasoning and the examples are fairly similar. Details are just kind of facts and data that are applied to your specific topic that you're presenting on. But no matter what, this is just providing a plethora of information that you think is informative and entertaining for the class. So I'm going to give you guys an example of how to do this. Let's imagine you are doing a presentation on taking a holiday in Thailand, taking a vacation in Thailand, right? And you listed a few different main ideas that you'd be covering, and let's say the first main idea was food, okay? So my examples are correlated to that. We're gonna first introduce the main idea. Here we go. Okay, let's start with delicious food from all over Thailand, all right? Something simple, all right? So this is probably gonna be almost exactly how you stated it within the introduction, right? So when you're listing your main ideas in the intro, this is going to be the same thing. You have to reintroduce that main idea, okay? Now I'm going to give some details, reasons, and examples about the food in Thailand, okay? We'll start with the detail. There are a wide variety of dishes that you can try in Thailand, but I will cover just a few of the most popular. One dish that I absolutely love is Tom Yum soup, which is a spicy soup loaded with shrimp and vegetables. Okay, so I'm talking about all the delicious food in Thailand, but specifically one dish, right? And I'm giving kind of the taste and the ingredients that include with it, right? So these are all just minor details that are talking about our main idea, okay? So details pretty simple. Now the reason and example, these are going to get more specific of why the food is great, right? So hence we'll start with the reason. Another reason why I find this dish to be amazingly delicious is due to the similarity of Korean food. I'm used to bold, strong flavors, which is absolutely found in this dish as well. Okay, so I'm justifying, I'm reasoning why this dish, Tom Yum soup, is so good, right? And one of the reasons why I do like it is because it is very similar to Korean food, right? I can relate to this food. I'm used to this type of food. I love this type of food, right? So this is a good reason to show people why they should try this dish because it is delicious. Okay, finally, I'll give an example. On top of this, it is incredibly cheap. For example, you're probably used to spending anywhere from $5 to $10 for a very basic fast food meal. However, Tom Yum soup will only cost you $1 and will be more than enough to fill you up. Okay, so there you go. Again, I'm giving an example of a comparative example of, just typical fast food that's a bit expensive compared to this delicious food that is very cheap, right? So set up some, I don't know, situation that, gives an example and shows why your belief is true, right? Or why the statement that you're giving is to be valid, okay? Anyways, these are fairly basic. We've done this in class many, many times, but those are just a couple examples for you to review upon. But like before, I want you guys to practice. So our next slide will get into that. I want all of you to assume that you are going to give a presentation on getting a driver's license. All right, that's your main topic. So I want you to create a body from this, right? And maybe just do one main idea. Yeah, that's how I have it set up. You don't need to do three. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit redundant. So let's just stick to one main idea. But within that main idea, I want you to give me details, reasons, and examples. Okay? So it's your choice. You have a lot of freedom here. Just make sure it correlates to the topic of getting a driver's license. Again, I'm going to give you guys about 5 minutes. Go ahead, write it down, practice, and I will be talking with you again soon. Okay, moving on. So we're gonna wrap everything up with our last part of the presentation, which is the conclusion. Why do we need it? Well, it one reminds the audience of what is important. Okay, also reminds the audience of our opinion. And finally, it gets the audience to think further on the topic after the presentation is over, right? So when they go home or they're driving home or walking to their next class or whatever it may be, they still are thinking about that presentation and into the near future to the point where how possibly maybe it can actually help them later on. Right, so what are we going to do to make this happen? Basically, you're going to summarize the main ideas and important information, restate your opinion, okay? And for those two, make sure to not do it in the exact same words as presented before, right? You can relay similar information or the same information using similar words. All right, so just don't be verbatim. Make sure that you're using different phrases and words to describe those main ideas and opinion that you had. However, you do have to reiterate it. You have to tell the audience again so they can remember it once they go home. And then also the last part is to offer some sort of advice to the audience to help them think deeper on the topic, right? So this correlates with the last part of getting them to think about this later after the presentation is over, right? So we've already practiced summarizing and restating the opinion. You guys have a good idea of that. Offering advice is fairly easy to do though. So in the next slide, I'm only going to give you a quick practice example before you're doing your own practice exercise because I feel like this lesson's running a little bit longer than expected. So I'm going to try to shorten it up. But anyway, yes, let's check this out. All right, so just skip straight to the practice exercise. Like I said, you're not even going to practice the full conclusion. I feel like you guys have a fairly good understanding of how to summarize and reiterate the main points and opinion. That's not difficult to do. But I want you to practice offering the audience a chance to think more about the topic later, right? So that's what we're going to do. And you can choose any topic, right? So anything you want. It can be about one of the topics we're talking about today. It could be from a previous lesson that we had in any one of our classes. It can be about your group project that you're going to do. I don't care. Choose your topic and just think of a very simple ending sentence to make sure that the audience thinks about your topic after. You know what I mean? So, for example, I have this very simple deal with, let's say the topic's taking a trip to Thailand. I might end it this way. So, next time you're planning a vacation, definitely consider Thailand as your perfect getaway. Okay, so simple. Ridiculous, right? But I'm taking my concept of Thailand being a great vacation spot and I'm making it personal to them. I'm telling you, if you, as a person, are taking a vacation, make sure you think about going to Thailand because it's great, you know? And so they probably will. Next time they actually are planning a vacation, they're going to remember parts of your presentation. They're going to remember the positive parts that you said about Thailand, you know, the great food or the wonderful beaches, whatever you introduced in your presentation. So this just last sentence gives them a quick reminder to think about it after the presentation is over. Okay, so I want you guys to take a few minutes, same as before, write them down. Maybe do two of them. Two different ones would be great. Yeah, write them down and then practice saying them, and then that'll be it. Okay, class, that is it for today. That was our presentation on the 4 parts of a presentation, right? Just remember, the 4 steps include the hook, the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. Hopefully the practice that you did today will help you for your upcoming group projects. I wish you all the best, and I will see you in class soon. Bye-bye.